Round 2. If you're just tuning in, which you sort of will be because this is only the second video I've made, you can check the link. I'll put a link to my first video. I'm sure that's within my technical capabilities, and you can watch the first part of my introduction. I think it's a 10-minute video. This video I will have 20 minutes. I'm not sure if I'll put you through an entire 20 minutes, but I'm going to continue on with my introduction and see where it goes. As I put in the comments, this isn't scripted. It's you know, I'm just doing an introduction, so as things progress, we can pick a topic or not. I usually take the drive to the pharmacy, usually listen to the radio, usually talk radio, and kind of get caught up on what's going on in the world, but I'm willing to forego that to do something a little more interactive. I'm shooting this on my GoPro. Sorry the sound isn't great. There's no provision for an external mic. I know there's some road noise and the like, and I don't know, deal with it. At least I'm not playing any music in the background, although I could, but you're probably not here for that. I do have a playlist, oddly enough, that goes with some of the blog entries I've made. So you can check out my blog, 6fathomsdeep.com. There's links to that in my profile. Facebook, Instagram, I don't know, maybe I'll even do Twitter. Try and make myself accessible and maybe get some exposure. So back to the introduction. I already mentioned I am on opiate replacement therapy, Suboxone, from an opiate addiction, obviously, because until recently I wasn't willing to give up cocaine and some other drugs. I haven't been able to get carries, which is, if you're not familiar with the term, which I wasn't, until it became very relevant to me, of course. That's when you get a prescription for your Suboxone or methadone that you can take home with you. Until, and it varies depending on where you are, your jurisdiction and the rules, but here you have to have something like 6 months of clean urine tests, otherwise they assume that there's diversion and you're going to be selling your medication. I'm going to talk about how I feel about that in another video. You know, I'm not I don't know. Yes, people do it. Yes, you can buy methadone and Suboxone that is diverted, but I think it's ridiculous to assume that everybody who's taking it is some sort of criminal and are automatically by default going to do the worst possible thing. Yeah, another video. So my last video I talked a little bit about getting off drugs. In my case, it's specifically opiates, but I do, you know, I enjoy just about everything. Oddly enough, opiates are not anywhere near what I would say is my drug of choice or my favorite drug. It is the one that I am physically dependent on. I prefer stimulants, cocaine. I really enjoy that. But trying to take a break from that, at least until I can get some carries on my Suboxone, probably. Oh boy, there's a lot of traffic. I hate traffic. All going the other way, but that'll be me in 10 minutes going the other way. You can't see it, but it's there, trust me. I did mention also been a drinker from about the age of 15, probably alcoholic by one definition or another since then. Was very depressed as a kid, young adult. It was just something I had never gotten away from. And that is what I get to look forward to going back to if I am able to come off the Suboxone, come off opiates altogether. So, trying to get external factors in my life straightened out, give myself a fighting chance. I did start on a antidepressant, sertraline, also known as Zoloft, probably other names, depending on what part of the world you're in. I have to say that I was very reluctant to go anywhere near antidepressants for a long time. Now that I've been on this one for a few months, I am starting to find they are helping. It's not helping as much as I had hoped in some areas, but it's also not been as scary. The issues I've been worried about haven't become a problem, which is good overall. I think that's a good trade-off. People look at me funny when I tell them, you know, I'll shoot whatever, cocaine or anything into my arm, or smoke it or whatever, but antidepressants scare me. Well, I've always felt like, I've known that using narcotics and illicit drugs, it's a temporary reprieve, very much what I feel anyway, and some will argue it, but I feel it's a known quantity. We actually have a lot of information on what these drugs do to the body, short-term, long-term, and I've always found a certain comfort in that. I'm very, I guess, a champion of harm reduction, and I'm very careful, as careful as you can be using these drugs, knowing exactly what's in them, testing them. I go to a lot of effort to procure them, purify them where possible. You'll see on my in my blog and on my Facebook page, I have techniques for removing active cuts from cocaine, which makes a big difference both in the quality of the experience And it's actually a big step in harm reduction also, believe it or not. Something else we can address in another video. Anyway, I'm at my stop, so we're going to pause. It'll be a few minutes for me, but for you, I'll be right back. Okay, and I'm back. You didn't know I was gone. Not sure what exactly you can see from your vantage point. It's kind of dark, so I'm sorry the scenery isn't very exciting. If you have any suggestions for camera placement, leave me a comment, and maybe I can make the drive a little more exciting, keeping in mind I am trying to maintain some anonymity, and I'm not sure, you know, as far as seeing the streets of where I'm cruising, probably not a big deal, but for now I want to err on the side of caution. Don't particularly want to show off all the lights on my dash, check engine light and bulb out light, yada yada. But extra points to anybody who can tell what kind of car it is from looking in the back seat. So I guess for the last part of this video, I actually don't know if this will be the third video or the second part of the second video. I hit the button and I'm not sure if it paused or started a new video. So, but what I'd like to have happen is I'd like to hear from you. Number one, just let me know you're listening. You can do that with a like or thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. But what I'm really looking for is some feedback. I'd like to hear from you a little bit. You can be the first of many, hopefully. Leave a comment. You don't have to say who you are or where you are, whatever you're comfortable with. But a couple of things that I would like to address in this video is, if you can remember, or if you can go back to that pre-addiction state, how were you feeling? Were you happy? You know, life was good. You fell into drugs, kind of a bad thing, and maybe you've come out, or maybe you're working on coming out, maybe you don't give a shit. But I'd like to know where you started. You know, even little things that I didn't think about. How are you sleeping? What's your mental state? Do you have energy? You know, your age might be relevant to that, but you don't have to disclose that, of course. I'm just coming up on, well, I'm in my early 40s, I'll say that. My birthday's in a few days. And, you know, that's definitely colored my experiences. So, I want to drill down and find out who here has something to shoot for, something to go back to, versus who needs to kind of make it a landing spot. Or, you know, assuming, and that's presumptuous to assume that everybody wants to get off drugs or opiate replacement. But if you do, or even if you don't, what were things like before? And how did drugs fit into your state of mind, and how do you think it changed? What was the appeal, if there was one? That would be great to find out. Also, I'm always curious to hear how people, you know, first experiences, or maybe when you knew you were in trouble. What was your gateway drug? For me, my experience started with MDMA, of all things, and it was MDMA that, reading about it, that changed my mind, changed how I felt about drugs. I was going through a lot of introspection, trying to work on self-improvement and reading all the books about happiness and you know, you name it, and getting into, it was one book in particular, the first mention I really saw of it, was a book on brain chemistry and chemistry of happiness. And for those of you who know MDMA, it triggers a flood of serotonin in your brain. Interestingly, the class of drugs that I'm using under prescription now, SSRIs, are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So rather than flood the brain with serotonin, which has numerous drawbacks, it's MDMA is significantly neurotoxic. SSRIs work to, well, just like what they say, they inhibit the reuptake of serotonin, the serotonin that is available in your serotonergic system. So, different way of definitely not accomplishing the same thing, but they are still kind of two sides of the same coin. You won't get that feeling from SSRIs, or they're just they're very subtle. But I can't deny that they have made a positive impact on my mood. So this time a month ago, I was essentially paralyzed with panic, despair. I couldn't get off the couch. I still feel like I'm in a precarious spot, but the difference is undeniable. I don't know how long I've got. I don't know how long that will last. So I need to take action to, take advantage of this boost for as long as it lasts. So, yeah, if you want to leave some comments, maybe tell me what you want to talk about. I have been writing on my blog for a couple of months. There's a lot about drugs on there, also some random stuff, sleep paralysis, love, sex. I don't know how much I'm going to get into that, but there's lots of stories for outwardly a very average person in almost every respect. I feel like sometimes my life is very weird, goes in some very bizarre directions, and I get some interesting stories out of it. I'm sure you can relate. And just to kind of wrap up my intro, I've got a couple of minutes left here. Traffic is pretty thick. It's 5 o'clock-ish, so it's rush hour for those of you who work. Something I'm working on work. Yikes. to infill a little bit on my background, who I am. I have been self-employed for the last 20 years. The most recent 14 years, I've been in the same company, same business, same city, and prior to that, it was 5 years in another part of the country in the same industry. So about 20 years of experience in this particular industry. Not a lot of work experience outside of working for myself, and that was one of the things that kind of added to my stress levels, and I have mixed feelings about, you know, saying this or that is what caused me to do whatever, but there's no question that being self-employed wasn't a good pick for me and my personality, and it took a toll on my mental health, and which in turn led me down the path to experimenting with drugs and addiction. I closed my business beginning of this year, and have essentially been unemployed ever since, trying to manage my addiction, mental health, trying to get back in the game. I've been fortunate. I have a really great support network for family. They've been helping me out a lot, but I also feel I've overworn that welcome, so I need to get back on my feet. I really feel like I'm in a precarious spot as far as getting back into heavy drug use again to cope with you know, the potential of a new work situation, and just my mental health in general it's pretty shaky. It's been a good few weeks, good month overall, but on the heels of, you know, 30 odd years, starting from, you know, adolescence, I had problems. So I understand that 1 month out of 500 doesn't, it's not time to be celebrating. Certainly not time to be getting complacent. So if you have any questions that you know would help you understand better where I'm coming from or what I'm trying to accomplish, ask away. Throw something in the comments, go to my blog or my Facebook, and post something up there. I really truly want this to be interactive. Maybe tomorrow I'll talk about my experiences with the people I've met through the journey, and one thing that's been remarkable in 20 years of being self-employed, upstanding member of the business community, it was only when I started spending time with other addicts and you know, getting to know that side of me, when I started to make my first real friends and meet some really great people. And maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow, but I know there's a bunch more great people out there, some assholes too. Not here to judge, so say hi and let me know what you think.